Rural communities continue to be at the receiving end of South Africa's high unemployment rate and lack of economic opportunities. With the unemployment rate at a record high of 32.9%, there are calls for commercial assets to be used to transform communities. Now, to help us understand how this can be achieved, I'm joined by Margaret Arnold from the Investec Enterprise and Youth Development Program. Margaret, appreciate your time this afternoon. Provide some insight, if you will, into Investec's investment strategy and partnership in the Western Cape.
Good afternoon, Hugo, and to all the viewers out there. Yes, so Investec, through our corporate banking division, invested in solar plants down in the Western Cape in the Newzroom community. It's one of the largest solar plants in the world. We assisted our partner, Pele Green Energy, to buy a stake in that asset. At the same time, because the community of Newzroom is obviously hosting that asset, we look at enterprise development opportunities in and around impoverished communities like Newzroom to enable them to benefit from our enterprise development programs, and obviously impoverished communities gain a significant amount from this.
Now, your partnership is around a commercial hydroponics farm in Newzroom. Walk us through this.
Yes, sure. So obviously solar plants don't have long-term employment opportunities post the construction phase of the solar plant. So we typically look at other businesses to assist with long-term employment opportunities. And in the Newzroom community, this was a hydroponics farm. Investec granted Knowledge Pele, the social development arm of Pele, a grant of 5 million rand to start a hydroponics farm in that community. You might ask, why a hydroponics farm? It matches the skill set of the area. The produce is a lot easier to produce, and obviously quality control a lot easier than with typical farming. So it was a no-brainer for us to start this initiative. What is really pleasing to note is that it has now become a commercial venture with off-take agreements with several retailers in the area. It has furthermore attracted additional funding, which means that employment opportunities can be enhanced.
Now, you talk about in line with the skill set of that area. What is that skill set, firstly? And secondly, what upskilling has been carried out or have you implemented?
Yes, sure. So in the Newzroom area, typically the skills in that community are around agriculture. A large part of that community is involved in the picking of fruit in the seasonal periods, but then there are parts of the year where obviously the employment opportunities are few and far between. So with our partner Knowledge Pele, we started the hydroponics farm, and obviously we assisted the interns and the youth from that community to with learning opportunities around agriculture. We trained them, and they then employed them through our youth development program, which looks at providing youth from that community with a year of employment, and that is sponsored by Investec. What was really nice to see was that a lot of those youth got permanent employment at the farm post the year of employment with Investec.
Now, Newzroom is well known for high unemployment numbers, I think somewhere in the region of 80%. How much of an impact has this project made?
So in its first year, the hydroponics farm employed 20 youths from the Newzroom community, and most of those youths were able to become permanently employed by the farm. In addition to that, Investec, in partnership with the National Institute of Development and Training, which is based in Worcester, which is quite close to the Newzroom community, invested further training spend into a disabled learnership for 30 learners from the Newzroom community. And they did various learnerships ranging from agriculture to IT, and they've also enjoyed a 75% absorption rate since they've completed their learnership. So it has had quite a significant impact, not only on the interns, but also obviously on their families and ultimately the community.
Now, I'm not sure if transformation is one of your pillars, but obviously when you talk about 20, 50 and 80 youth being employed, it's noble, but it's not significant in the greater scheme of things. Is there any value in greater empowerment or transformative aspects of dealing with this, do you think?
So I think the numbers don't sound significant, but if you think about it, before the hydroponics farm, there was no opportunities or very, very few opportunities for these particular youth. And we must also remember that when a single person becomes employed, it not only impacts them, but it impacts 4 or 5 individuals as part of their families, which does have the capacity to shape communities. In addition to this, we have looked at replicating this model in other remote areas, and we have granted Knowledge Pelly a further 10 million rand grant to start a similar initiative in the Northern Cape in a community known as Copperton. So, it may not sound significant, but certainly the lives that we are transforming, we are seeing quite a nice impact.
That question was in no way meant to suggest that you aren't doing enough or you're doing very little, Margaret. But it's to establish if, as opposed to employing these youngsters, what are the opportunities, if there are, of allowing these youngsters or equipping them with a skill set to set up their own business as young people? Is that an option?
Certainly. Through our youth development programs, we partner with not only individuals in the Toast Refugee community, but organizations and NGOs across South Africa in high employment sectors. But obviously the economy is against us, and it's not always possible to gain employment in the formal sector. So what we try and do is we try and train and equip these youths that we employ through our programs with skills for them to start their own businesses. I'll give you an example. We partner with an artisan school in KZN, and through that school we are training artisans to actually start their own businesses in the rural communities in which they come from. And we are seeing significantly good results from that.
Now, one of the things that I've always found to be missing is we equip young people with a skill set to remain employed, but there's certain other skills that they require. So outside of the skills that are necessary to remain employed, are there any other skills that are being taught to these young people?
Yes, certainly. Our partners across South Africa are excellent in terms of the other, the softer skills that are required in terms of, what it means to have a job, what it means to show up at a job. In addition to that, learning to manage finances, because a lot of these youths, it's the first time they've ever received a paycheck, and, not being trapped into, a lot of debt with that money. So actually educating these youth on how to actually, budget and how to open a bank account and, how to save and things like that. And also formalizing what is important, education, children's education and food and the necessities, and not spending money, obviously, on things that aren't necessities. So, yes, there are a lot of softer skills that do go around, that we do with the youth. And in addition to that, we also train them once they have completed their year of internship. Some of them don't necessarily receive permanent employment. So we also look at their CVs and assist them with writing a CV and getting references, and also assisting them on how to conduct an interview for a job.
Margaret, what I'm interested to know is the conversations that you have with these youth before they're employed and potentially a year later, once they've been working for that period. What are the benefits to them? I mean, what are sort of stories that you are hearing? What are they telling you about life prior to employment, and certainly after a year or so of employment?
So it's really heartwarming to hear some of the stories, and I'm quite fortunate in the work that I do to visit and to speak to a lot of the youth that we have employed for that year. And certainly it has changed their lives. A lot of the programs that we support are in impoverished areas where there are no opportunities. And if it wasn't for Investec and our youth development programs, there would be no other opportunities. And it's quite scary that a lot of the youth that we do see coming through our programs are actually highly skilled, university qualifications. They just do not have opportunities in those remote areas where they are situated. We also try and keep people in the areas where they live, instead of bringing them into towns to try and find employment, in the bigger cities. But certainly, the youth that we have engaged with before and post the program, their lives have changed significantly. I'll give you an example. Up in Mpumalanga, we sponsor some youth in the tourism sector. And one of the ladies that was part of our first cohort of interns got chosen to come to Johannesburg. She experienced the first time of flying, first time of staying in a hotel, and she got to be interviewed by Richard Branson. Wow. Ironically, whose game farm she actually became employed upon, and was able to also go back home and give her daughter an education. So some wonderful stories out of the programs that we have sponsored.
Absolutely incredible. I'm curious to know, though, why you want to keep or encourage young people to stay within their communities and obviously not expand their horizons. I'd imagine, like the young lady you spoke about, that if you are given a skill set and you can seek your fortune elsewhere, you would do that and potentially allow someone else to come in and fill your spot.
No, certainly we would never restrict individuals, obviously, to remote areas. The reason that we have chosen to focus in remote areas is because there are so little opportunities out there. We have programs in the Barberton area, up in Mpumalanga, in Bushbuck Ridge, where there are very few opportunities for youths who stay there and who have families there and who don't really want to move to big towns. We try and keep them in those areas so that they can remain with their children and with their families if that is what they would like to do. But certainly by no means do we restrict it to that. We have sponsored some of our youth from the Cape Flats to attend universities in Cape Town. So certainly we definitely wouldn't restrict them. But a lot of the youth that we do employ definitely want to stay in the areas that they live in.
Margaret Arnold, thanks so much for speaking to us. Incredible work that Investec Enterprise and youth development programs are doing.